Most of the characters in this book are real, or based on real.
It's probably about half and half. Is Thomas Eakins the painter, and Halstead, Osler, a couple of other doctors who play smaller bit parts. There's a woman doctor who is fictionalized, but was drawn. One of the Osler's great achievements was to be pushing medical education for women to be doctors on the same level as men, not to just treat women or be nurses. And that was inspiration for one of my woman characters. Everyone was kind of based on somebody, but the fictional characters are actually fictional. You try to, you can't impose a personality and call it factual. Where in Osler's case, I had a huge biography with a lot of his writings. So the speech patterns and his attitudes, I think I got correctly.
For a while, I was thinking of the book as CSI 1889. I have to say, because these guys are performing. They're the beginnings of modern forensic medicine.
Absolutely. We don't think of it. The struggle for autopsy, the struggle to actually be able to cut into a human being, is 2 millennia old. The book is set in 1889, and as recently as 1882. William Smith Forbes, who was a great anatomist in Philadelphia, was indicted for despoiling graves because he was getting cadavers. You couldn't. They had to be condemned criminals, and or get permission. It was very difficult, and he almost went to jail. And a set of anatomy laws were passed in 1883 in Philadelphia, which allowed Osler to do it. So this struggle to be able to look inside people, otherwise it's like trying to repair a car without being able to lift the hood.
This book is set right as doctors are going from, well, being no better than grave robbers to being the upperly mobile professionals that they represent today.
Well, doctors were wealthy before. What happened was, in the American Civil War, war is a boon to medicine, which it's unfortunate, but all sorts of surgical advances, by necessity, are discovered on the battlefield. And the American Civil War was so horrific and the doctors were so overburdened that there were a lot of things they found out about surgery. And it took about another 20, 25 years for many of these things to be incorporated. Aseptic surgery as opposed to antiseptic surgery. Instead of using something to clean, the idea of keeping the room clean. In the 1880s, there were doctors who used to operate smoking a cigar. But by the 1890s, as a result, by the way, largely of William Stewart Halstead, one of the characters in the book, doctors were wearing gowns, they weren't wearing masks yet. Halstead invented rubber gloves. It was a serendipitous discovery. They used to try to clean instruments in their hands with carbolic soap, and it's very caustic. And he called the Firestone Rubber Company, and he had a thick pair of gloves to keep the carbolic soap, and then he discovered that these actually keep the wound clean and keep the area clean. So from 1880 and 1900, of which my book is set right in the middle, surgery and medicine, a lot because of Osler, had completely transformed. And by 1900, it was what we would call it was a relatively modern science, and in 1880, it wasn't.
Is this your bag, going off and doing sort of historical suspense things and
Well, it's half my bag. I have a book coming out in the fall on a political history of the early American Supreme Court. So I like doing both. What's fun about these for me is I feel more like I know the period I wrote about, because I was able to, in fictionalizing a character, if you're doing it right and you want to maintain the truth, if you want to maintain the spirit of the character, you really get into it. And at the end, I feel like I know William Osler. I feel like I know William Stewart Halstead. And it's a funny kind of history. So I'm walking away, because as a historian, I do narrative history, as a historian, you're always trying to paint a picture of a time, and part of the picture of the time is the temperament and the personalities of the people involved. But you can't put words in their mouth. You can't say James Madison said this, or Alexander felt this, or Alexander Hamilton really meant this. But you can do it here. And the more you do it, if you've maintained your discipline, you kind of walk away and you say, well, this is also history. So I'm definitely going to keep doing, assuming the public buys them and my editor agrees that I should keep writing them, I will definitely do it. It was great fun. And I'm doing one now that's set in the 1530s, an espionage novel set in the 1530s, which is also revolving around a scientific discovery, which is also immense fun. And I have some other ideas, and I would definitely like to keep doing these.
Oh, I'm looking forward to the next one. Good
Thank
fun.
you. Thank you.
The book is The Anatomy of Deception, a novel of suspense. I've been speaking with the author, Lawrence Goldstone, and Anatomy of Deception is published by Doubleday Canada.